Alright guys, what starts as a calm day inside a public council building quickly spirals into a complete abuse of authority. The laughing auditor is simply filming in a public reception area, openly, peacefully, and without bothering anyone. But within minutes, police arrive and immediately start treating him like a threat. Instead of asking sensible questions or trying to understand what he's actually doing, the lead sergeant throws out the phrase, hostile reconnaissance, a serious label usually associated with covert planning before criminal acts. The problem is obvious. Nothing about this situation is covert. The camera is out in the open, the auditor is standing in plain sight, and there's no sign of criminal intent. Yet from the very first exchange, the officers choose suspicion over facts, creating a false narrative that turns a harmless interaction into something far more serious than it ever needed to be.
I'm upsetting the council.
Yeah?
I'm not doing anything.
Well, they've called us and said, because they're concerned, you've come in here, you're wearing a mask, you're wearing shades, and what they were concerned about is that you were filming doors, security doors,
Yeah, I was.
cameras, things like that.
Yeah, I was.
Obviously, in these times, they would be worried about that.
Would they?
Because that looks to be hostile reconnaissance.
What's
doesn't
that?
it? You don't know what hostile reconnaissance is? Hostile reconnaissance is when someone who's planning a terrorist attack or some other action against people will come to the location in the first to find out where the areas of vulnerability are, where security cameras are, where locations are like that.
Okay.
That's obviously something the council are very keyed up to during modern times. That's something they're worried about.
Hold on a second, you said a lot of things. First and foremost, do you mind identifying yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm Sergeant James Hudson.
Okay.
As you can tell, I've just come out from the police station.
Second, hostile reconnaissance, is that the textbook definition?
I don't know what the textbook definition is, but that's a definition.
Okay, so it's not the definition, okay, and it involves covert recording. So this isn't covert, this is
Hostile
overt.
reconnaissance doesn't have to be covert.
Okay, so if you knew the textbook definition, then
As the conversation continues, the officer's position starts to unravel almost immediately. The sergeant first claims council staff were concerned, then tries to broaden that by suggesting members of the public were alarmed too. But the footage doesn't support that at all. People walk past normally, nobody looks distressed, and there's no visible disruption. Despite this, the officer still tries to pressure the auditor into identifying himself, as if vague discomfort suddenly creates legal powers that don't exist. It doesn't. You can't just slap a dramatic label on someone and demand compliance because you don't like what they're doing. The auditor calmly challenges the logic, asking straightforward questions the sergeant struggles to answer. And that's what makes this so telling. Instead of grounding the interaction in clear law or evidence, the officer relies on tone, pressure, and vague insinuations. The whole encounter starts feeling less like policing and more like an attempt to force obedience.
It's irrelevant. We can both agree that would look like hostile reconnaissance. Is that right?
okay. No, I don't agree.
You don't agree?
No, I
Okay.
don't.
Well, would you mind identifying yourself to me?
Do I need to?
Well, yeah, because to me it looks like you
Yes.
are currently carrying out hostile
Yes,
reconnaissance.
I need to.
Yeah, I'm saying I would like you to because of that.
Okay.
And I think you know that you're going to provoke this kind of
No,
reaction.
you just said I need to identify myself.
No, I would like you to.
Okay, well, I'm not going to identify myself.
Well, would you mind leaving the council?
No, I wouldn't.
You wouldn't mind leaving? No. Okay, thank you.
If you identified yourself properly, sir.
Yeah,
Please don't
Sergeant-
step so close.
Sergeant
please.
James Hodson,
Okay. Another
2673, Bournemouth Police
another
Station.
question, what's that in the uniform?
Which bit?
The thing that looks similar to a flag?
That?
Yeah, is that police issue?
There's a thin blue line.
Is it police issue?
No, that was
It's
personal.
not part of the uniform. You know, some people find that offensive. I spoke to your colleague at the back gate.
Do you find it offensive?
I do find it offensive. Can you take it off, please?
No, I'm not going to take it. You'll forgive me for smiling there, because you're talking about the decent thing, yet you're coming in here, masking your face, making members of the other public concerned,
Have you had a
making us
complaint?
receive. Yeah, we've received 999 calls.
From who?
About you.
This is where things completely fall apart. After a staff member says he wants the auditor gone, the sergeant suddenly acts as though that request alone gives him full authority to physically remove someone from a publicly funded building. It doesn't. A council reception area open to the public isn't private property just because it's convenient to say so. Trespass in a situation like this is generally a civil matter, not a shortcut for police force. But rather than explaining any lawful basis, the sergeant closes the gap, raises the tension, and physically drags the auditor out. It's unnecessary, aggressive, and impossible to justify based on what's actually happening. Then comes another major issue. During the removal, the auditor notices the sergeant's body-worn camera is already recording. He was never informed. When challenged, the officer casually says he forgot. For an officer who has just laid hands on someone, That excuse speaks volumes about the lack of professionalism on display.
It's not the public officials.
Well, as far as I'm aware, people in here as well have come to them and said, I'm concerned about that man.
Okay.
So, members of the public within here, because of your actions.
What members of the public?
I don't know which members of the public, because
I've been sat here.
I didn't receive the call myself.
25 minutes. So I've been sat here for about 32 minutes, and there's maybe been about 4 or 5 members of the public that have come past and stayed within this area. Not one person's batted an eyelid about the fact I'm sat with a camera. I've not been filming members of the public.
As far as you know?
No, I know. Because I'm good at what I do. So
you've spoken to every single person.
No, what I'm saying is I'm not filming. I'm not filming members of the public. When members of the public are passing my camera, I'm dropping it.
I can only tell you what I've been told, and that is that we've received a call saying that you are causing concern
from council officials.
Look,
public officials.
If you let me finish talking, I'll explain it to you. But if you're going to try and put words in my mouth, then there's not much point having a conversation, is there?
So I'm not putting words in your mouth. You told me
you're trying to finish my sentence. I was trying to explain
no. You had members of the. You said that you had 99 calls from members of staff.
Basically, what it boils down to.
Once outside, instead of stepping back and cooling things down, the officers dig themselves even deeper. A second sergeant arrives and immediately starts repeating new allegations, claiming the auditor was filming private consultations and NHS patients. That's a serious accusation, but there's one huge problem. The auditor says he never entered those areas, and his footage backs him up. Rather than investigate properly, the officers simply accept the complaint at face value and use it to justify what already happened. Then they reach for the usual fallback: breach of the peace. But again, the facts don't support it. There's no violence, no threat, and no disorder, just a man filming in public and challenging authority. The contradiction becomes glaring when they tell him he's not detained, yet still block him from going back inside. That gray area, controlling someone while denying responsibility, is where bad policing often hides, and this encounter exposes it perfectly.
Okay.
Please exit
one last thing.
You're now trespassing.
Trespassing is a civil matter. You have no
authority. Can be enforced by the police.
Can it?
Of course it can.
No, it can't.
Please leave.
No.
You're not going to leave.
No, are you going to make me leave?
But I will have to remove you if you refuse to leave.
Let's, before we go any further...
No, there is no conversation.
Before we go any further,
you are trespassing.
If you put hands on me, it will be an assault.
No, it won't.
It will be an assault. You'll be infringing my rights.
Asked you to leave.
Let me finish my sentence, please. It's a public building. It's publicly accessible.
And your implied right to access has been removed.
Why are you getting aggressive?
Because I need you to leave.
Okay,
and you are not listening.
It's a public building.
Yes.
It's funded by the taxpayer.
Your implied right to access has been removed.
You can't remove that. It's not your building.
It is a private building.
Okay, it's not a private building. Who pays for it?
The council.
The council pays for it. Who pays for the council, sir?
Everybody.
Okay,
well, you've not identified yourself to me.
It's a reception. It's a reception. I've not tried to go past.
Please leave.
Stop closing the distance.
No, because I need you to leave. And
I'm not leaving. You will have to.
By this point, the officer's entire justification is hanging by a thread, and it shows. The auditor repeatedly tells them the footage will prove he stayed in reception and never filmed anyone in private consultations. That should have made them stop and reassess. Instead, they double down. Why? Because once officers convince themselves someone looks suspicious, everything gets filtered through that assumption. A camera becomes a threat. Confidence becomes attitude. Questioning authority becomes hostility. That mindset is dangerous because it replaces evidence with personal bias. The officers appear far more concerned with defending their earlier actions than actually establishing the truth. They never seriously challenge the claims made against him, never properly test the allegations, and never give his evidence the same weight as the complaints. That's not impartial policing, that's choosing a side first and searching for justification afterward. And that's exactly how routine situations spiral into misconduct.
Look at this. Get your hands off me now.
Would you mind exiting the
No,
whole
I'm in a public place. When did you tell me that you turned your body worn on?
Would you mind
tyrant? No, I will not.
Why not?
Because I don't want to. It's a public place. I can do what I want. When were you going to tell me that you turned this on? You just infringed on my rights, sir. How dare you? You're a disgrace to the uniform.
Thank you very much.
Who do you think you are?
I'm James Hodson.
There'll be a complaint going in against you, sir.
Excellent.
Professional standards, and we'll see exactly what happens. Why didn't you tell me you turned your body worn on?
I forgot.
You forgot. Is that good enough? When you've just assaulted me in a public place?
Well, luckily it was all recorded.
Was it? And why didn't you tell me? You covertly recorded me.
this is not very covert. Because you'll be removed again, and if and then if you don't, we're going to have to look at what you causing harassment to the people within the school.
I'm not spoken to anyone in there except that man over there.
Actions. I've told you how your actions.
No, you're a disgrace, sir. Go away. You're dismissed. Get out of my face.
Okay. You don't dismiss me.
Yes, I will dismiss you. You're a public servant. You do what you're told.
You are
do what you're told.
Nuisance.
You do what you're told.
We're not public servants.
Where's the complaint?
Servants.
Where's the complaint? Who's the complaint from? Who's the member of the public that's made a complaint?
Okay, I would not.
Member of the public that's made a complaint.
In the end, what makes this encounter so revealing is not just the force used, but the complete refusal to acknowledge when they got it wrong. The auditor eventually shows footage that undermines the very claims used to justify his removal. The supposed filming of private consultations? Not there. The intrusive behavior they described? Not there. The public alarm they kept referring to? Barely visible, if at all. At that point, any officer acting in good faith should have recognized the mistake, corrected the record, and apologized. But that never happens. Instead, there's defensiveness, silence, and a clear unwillingness to admit fault. That tells you everything. This wasn't simply a misunderstanding, it was pride overriding accountability. And that's the bigger issue here. When officers stop testing their assumptions and start enforcing them as fact, public trust erodes fast. Because if this can happen over a camera in a council building, it can happen anywhere.
He just assaulted me and you allowed that to happen.
No, listen, you've been putting your camera
and what?
Windows when people are having private consultations.
And windows, people having private conversations.
Yeah.
Where?
No, it's an NHS facility.
I didn't go into the NHS, but I stayed in the reception.
NHS.
No, I didn't. It's on film, you numpty.
Right, now you've been rude.
And what?
That's rude,
it's not a crime to be rude, is it? I've just been assaulted by this man, and you want me to be nice about it. Who do you think you are?
Out of the building because you're causing a breach of the peace. You're actually going to cause harm to people.
Well, arrest me for it then. Arrest me for it then.
We don't need to do that.
Arrest me for it. Let's see the CPS say.
The CPS won't get involved.
The CPS won't even authorise charges. You're a numpty.
Don't be rude.
I don't. It's not
Would
a crime.
you like to listen to how the law works?
It is not a crime to be rude, sir. I've just been assaulted by this tyrant.
You've been removed
from a public place.
For a breach of the peace.
From a public place. Trespassed.
Now you're out here.
Trespassed from a public place by a police officer. Arrest me if it's a breach of the peace. If it's a breach of the peace, arrest me.
Listen.
Arrest me.
Listen.
And I never got you to identify formally.
Are you going to
identify yourself?
I'm Sergeant Can. Matthew Can. It's written there.
Yeah. Number. Station.
1000 here.
What do you mean here? Is that how you address members of the public? Is that how you identify yourself to a judge?